expensive way to power your home. In fact, the average electricity bill in Australia has more than doubled in the last 15 years, but not for the ones who went solar. Unlike your electricity bill, the price of solar has actually come down, and there's also government rebates available. So what are you waiting for? Join the 2 million households already saving hundreds of dollars every year. See how much your roof could be making you at solarpowerco.com.au. Go solar and get $500 cash back with the Solar Power Co, Australia's most trusted solar brand. solarpowerco.com.au.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Welcome along, Twilight Football once again here on a Tuesday afternoon. Hopefully one of the last shows we'll be doing remotely, but we'll keep you posted with potential return to the studio. It's looking a little bit more positive here in Melbourne with everything starting to open up, a taste of freedom, the sun is shining. Nick DeBano, how are you?
Good. Had my week off last week. Unfortunately, it was a late withdrawal. Bit of illness, but now we're back. We've passed the fitness test and we're in today. So unfortunately for Pakua Frimpong, she's back in the twos for this week, but she'll be hopefully back in the one soon enough.
Absolutely. Well, Nick, we had a glorious return for the Matildas over the weekend. Their first game in Australia, what was it, 500, 600 days? It was a ridiculous break between home fixtures. And it ended in a win, a 3-1 victory over the old rivals Brazil, who, aside from the Olympics game that we don't talk about, are absolutely Australia's bunnies. And I don't know, I was feeling it. I was really enjoying that Matildas performance. The most I've enjoyed seeing them play in quite some time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't really get much of a chance to watch it live. I was sort of enjoying the lockdown freedoms on Saturday night, and I caught up on it on Sunday. Sort of had the game on the background Saturday night, and you could sort of feel when you're watching the game that sense of excitement. I saw the goals and sort of you see the reaction from the fans at that point. Also, the reaction on social media as the goals were happening was pretty massive. But then when really rewatching the game, there were a lot of things to, I guess, be excited about. A lot of subtle improvements. I guess the number one thing that I took away from it, Josh, was not just the excitement of having the Matildas back and them winning, but how good is it when you actually play players in the right positions, in their comfortable positions, and how well they play? I'm pretty sure it was one of your tweets during the game about that. But when you actually see Ali Carpenter at right back, Steph Catley at left back, Emily Van Egmond not playing as a six, and it worked. Who would have thought?
Who would have thunk it, indeed? I mean, I think it was a little bit of validation for all of us who've been tweeting the same things about the Matildas under three successive managers. And maybe Tony Gustafsson, who we know he takes notes. We know he has his whiteboard and he's, hopefully very attentive to those piping up with their hand up at the back of the class. Hopefully he's been looking at some of the takes flying around about Matilda's managers putting square pegs in round holes. And finally, we've got a coach who might be embracing Emily Van Egmond as an attacking midfielder, embracing the fact that we have two of the best fullbacks in world football. But we'll get into that with Marissa Lordanic at 5:15 in about 5 or 10 minutes. Nick, also breaking news this afternoon, the Matildas' former boss, Alan Stajic, has been appointed coach of the Philippines women's national team in time for the 2022 Asian Cup in India. They will be seeking to qualify for the Women's World Cup for the first time. What's your reaction to that news?
I'm a bit surprised, Josh. I'm not going to lie. I thought that just in terms of, I thought his next job, wherever it might be, would be domestic. Like, as in he'd stay in the realms of Australia. I thought he'd be probably the number one free agent coach available if any A-League team pulled the pin relatively early in the season or whatever else on their boss. I thought he's a shoo-in. Like, he's going to be easily picked up. But to see him go number one overseas, but also to the Philippines, I find that, no disrespect to the Philippines, but it is a little bit of a downgrade. I think that's fair to say. But the overwhelming storyline here is that there is a chance that I believe that Australia and the Philippines may meet at the Asian Cup. I don't think the groups have been drawn yet, nor is qualification finished, but there's every chance there's going to be that storyline to it too. But yeah, very shocked. Shocked at the move entirely, Josh.
Yeah, I'm sort of already exhausted in anticipation of the hot takes. Should the Philippines do well, or should the Philippines play against the Matildas? But I agree, it seems a little modest an appointment for a coach of his caliber and standing in the game, especially after he was sort of vindicated by his spell at the Mariners last season, and left very much because the club didn't try hard enough to keep him, not because he was sacked. Obviously, he did miracles with the Mariners. He's obviously had a very successful spell in charge in the Matildas with a very complicated and acrimonious end that we do not need to recap here. But I'm a little bit underwhelmed. I thought one of, maybe not the powerhouse teams, but the mid-ranking women's national teams would have been keen to take him on, or maybe a club job in the WSL or the NWSL over in America. I thought he kind of had his pick of plum positions. So this one is a real surprise to me. I can't claim to have ever seen the Philippines national women's team play. Don't know what standard they're at. Generally speaking, women's football in Asia is lagging behind a little bit, with certain countries as notable exceptions, such as Japan. But yeah, I'm keen to see what he can do, and it does add a curious little side plot to the upcoming Women's Asian Cup in 2022.
Tell you what, it's a good appointment for the Philippines, Josh.
I think that's one thing we're going to do.
It's a fantastic pickup. I'm just having a look. They're the third lowest ranked team that's currently qualified for the Asian Cup. Getting someone like Alan Stage is a brilliant appointment. I just think that he could have gone maybe an ebb higher. I think that's one thing we can agree on.
Yeah, it seems slightly surprising, and I was also wondering whether he would hang around for a potential A-League gig that would open up. I think he was in the running for certain positions like Western United, which was eventually filled by John Aloisi. Carl Robinson's been under all sorts of pressure at Western Sydney to get results. You could see, that if that goes awry early in the season, that might be an available gig that would be gettable for Stages. So, again, a little bit surprising, but moving back into the women's game for him is an interesting move. We'll talk more about the Matildas and the upcoming game tonight against Brazil, the rematch of the 2-game series with Marissa Lordanic on the other side of the next break. But Nick, getting into some other news, MacArthur, the bells are ringing for the new goalkeeper. All of a sudden, a captain retires thanks to injury in Adam Federici, and in comes Philip Curto, who was outstanding in his first campaign in the A-League, but suffered some pretty brutal head knocks in a subsequent one, and he gets a lifeline back into the professional game here in Australia, the Polish goalkeeper.
Yeah, it's one of those high risk, high reward kind of pickups. We don't know. I think when he copped his last concussion in Ballarat, he didn't play a single minute after that for the rest of the season. He lost his spot to Ryan Scott, not just on form, but I think that there might have been some concerns about sort of his own personal welfare. But if MacArthur are taking a punt on him, it must be that they believe that he's good to go. He would have had to have undergone all sorts of tests, medicals and everything to make sure that he's all good and ready to go. And we know that the nature of how we deal with concussions now in professional sport is a lot different to say how we dealt with it 5 years ago. For me, though, if this move pays off and he has any form similar to what he did when he first came onto the scene at Wellington, and even his first season at Western United, this is a brilliant pickup. It's a shame that they've lost Adam Federici and the league's lost Adam Federici so soon. It would have been great to see him go again. But I'll tell you what, if this move pays off, it's a good one. And MacArthur's lost their first 2 preseason games. They've conceded 8 goals. And out of all the goalkeepers available with the window shut, I think that Philip Curto probably is the best one if he can stay fit. That's the big if. So, high risk, high reward.
It's a bit of a schmozzle over at MacArthur at the moment. Mark Milligan apparently stepping away from his assistant coaching role over concerns about the direction of the club, and perhaps there's a potential conflict of interest there with his new gig over at Channel 10 covering the Ag League as well. So that's a big loss on the eve of the season, losing your captain, all of these losses in preseason games by pretty hefty scorelines, especially that 5-0 defeat to Sydney that got so much publicity. Where do you expect MacArthur will finish this season based on this? I mean, do we read anything into preseason form? Is it way too early to say?
There's a lot of different factors, Josh. We can probably go in. Probably best not to touch on them all. But I mean, the main thing here is that their results aren't promising. 5-0 loss against Sydney FC and a 3-1 loss against the Mariners, who I've tipped to very little sample size to be one of the sides to potentially regress. We don't know what they're going to be like under Nick Montgomery, but for a team that have been quite active in the off season and have gone and spent big on De Vere and Juric and Craig Noon and really look to try bring in some quality players to build on a semi-final finish last year, deserved or undeserved last season, I have a lot of concerns. I feel like a lot of teams below them have looked like they're going to improve this season. And I have a feeling that if they don't get the ship, they don't get their off-field affairs in order and they can translate into their on-field affairs, I feel like they might get lost in the mix. And this could be a really tough season for MacArthur.
I mean, they've raised a lot of eyebrows with their spending and their attempts to lure star players from other clubs, particularly Ulysses Davila is a huge pickup, Craig Noon from Melbourne City. I wonder whether the star names and this sort of Galacticos style recruitment policy is actually going to come together for them. But, it's early days yet. Season hasn't even started. Still got another month to go. So you could see them pulling it together in time with a lot of new faces there. Nick, we'll take a short break. On the other side, we've got Marissa Lordanic of the Far Post podcast. She writes for The Raw as well. Excellent piece after the Matildas 3-1 win over Brazil over the weekend. We're going to chat to her about the glorious homecoming, the big win, and the rematch tonight against Brazil. So stick around here on Twilight Football.
Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Buying your electricity from the big energy companies is now the most expensive way to power your home. In fact, the average electricity bill in Australia has more than doubled in the last 15 years, but not for the ones who went solar. Unlike your electricity bill, the price of solar has actually come down, and there's also government rebates available. So what are you waiting for? Join the 2 million households already saving hundreds of dollars every year. See how much your roof could be making you at solarpowerco.com.au. Go solar and get $500 cash back with the Solar Power Co, Australia's most trusted solar brand. solarpowerco.com.au.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
And we're back here on Twilight Football on a Tuesday afternoon. Nick Dabano here with me, and Marissa Lordanic joins us now to talk Matildas after a pretty glorious homecoming. It was a feel-good 3-1 win over Brazil. Personally, I felt it was the most encouraging, I suppose, performance that the Matildas have put together in quite a while. Marissa, welcome back to FNR, and how are you feeling about the state of our women's national team?
Thanks for having me, guys. I feel really good. I agree with you completely. It was such an enjoyable game to watch, and it just felt... it was a real big relief. I think that's the big word that's kind of come out of it. It was a relief to get the win, to have the team back on home soil, for Tony to get the win in his first trip down under and stuff. There was just a lot to like about the performance, and there was just a lot of really good things that came out of it. So overall, it's a very positive kind of vibe that's come out of this one game, and there's the hope that it gets replicated later tonight.
What were some of those good things you like, Marissa? Josh and I spoke about a few of them, but we're curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, there was so many players really shone. I think we all kind of bang on about Mary Fowler, but she just continues to show us what she can do, and kind of the gap between her being kind of teenage prodigy into just full-blown superstar is kind of getting smaller and smaller, and she's really kind of entering that territory, and we saw that on Saturday night. I thought Kyra Cooney-Cross was amazing as well in the six. It's not something we typically see her in A-League women level. I had to stop myself saying W-League there, but it's not something we're used to seeing her in, but I think she made a great account of herself. I thought she was really good, and I think she was necessary in that position to then allow other players to do their thing, which is something we've all been kind of talking about for years as Matildas fans. I thought Emily Van Egmont's half was absolutely excellent. It was so nice to see her kind of be given free rein as an attacking player, because we know she's good at it, and she has been one of the Matildas' best. I think in the Olympic qualifiers at the start of 2020, she was our top scorer and our top assister, and then we basically lost her for the first half of 2021 because she had to be shuffled back in the midfield. So to see her return to the position where we know she does good things was just an absolute kind of joy to see. Even Kerr didn't get on the score sheet, but did all those little things that maybe people don't pick up on, or they don't rate as highly as goals because of the position she plays in, but she did all those things that still contribute to the team and still end up getting us a win. So everyone was just really good. I can't really fault many of the players. I think there was just a lot of things to like, and a lot of things that were a lot of players that just did what they had to do, and they did it well. So it was just exciting to kind of see that.
Watching the Matildas at the Olympics and seeing how the team was continually looking for Kerr as an aerial threat, continually playing quite ambitious long diagonal balls to see if she could win something in the air or forcing crosses, it kind of reminded me just a little bit of what we're seeing at Manchester United with Cristiano Ronaldo at the moment. This superstar striker is so good in the air and so good when the ball is in the box that you kind of try and force the issue too much. Whereas in this Brazil game, I just think we saw more of a team-first approach and more joined-up thinking that I think will benefit Kerr in the long term anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we still definitely utilised the wide spaces. There was still a lot of crossing. There was still a lot of wide play. The thing was that there was other people in the central spaces to capitalise on that. So it wasn't always the long ball to Kerr thing, which I think we all know has, produces results. It gets goals. There's a lot of validity to that as a play and a route to kind of scoring goals. But I think this game, we really did see that there are other ways for the Matildas to score. And that was so important, because there is a fear, and I think it's just an Australian football fear, that there's an over-reliance on your one striker and everything's done to that end. And if it's not working, then it's panic stations. It's, very Socceroos, Tim Cahill kind of areas. But I think this was really reassuring in the sense that we got to see that there are other players and there are other ways that Matildas can score. But then we've also always got that to fall back on, the Kerr aerial route. So it was really reassuring in that sense that we can now rely on Mary Fowler to pull something out of her trick bag. Tamika Yolop was allowed to make forward runs, and we know that she can score. We know that she's actually a really immense attacking threat, and she does that week in, week out at club level. Again, Van Egmond, I can't, rave about it enough. It's so good that she can now be that attacking threat as well. So we got to see lots of other ways the Matildas can score, and that was actually probably one of the most exciting things.
Another thing that I really liked, Marissa, was defensively. Like, they weren't leaking as many goals. They were a lot more compact. I think the areas in between defence and midfield, Tony spoke a lot about that they really wanted to work on defending better. Was that something that caught your eye as well?
Yeah, I think everyone kind of noted the shift back to a flat back four rather than the kind of fluid backline we saw during the Olympics. And I think it definitely worked. I don't know if there was almost an element also of just, this is familiar, so I like it. Like, I know what I'm going to get here, so I'm a big fan of it. But to their immense credit, they all did really well. I heard you guys talking about it earlier, having Catley and Carpenter down the wings, being able to do their thing defensively, but also in an attacking kind of way was so good. And we know that Polks and Kennedy have a really good partnership, and barring a kind of, really unfortunate sort of back pass and error and the rain and all the kind of little bits and pieces that contributed to that one goal that we conceded, they did really well. So I think, the flat back four, it's something we know works. And honestly, I would like to see it, but I don't think we should bin the fluid black line either. I still think there's a lot of value that we can get out of that, having that in our back pockets and utilising that. But it was nice to see that, I suppose, we have the range that, we are able to kind of have two different formations that work in different ways, both in a defensive sense and an attacking one.
Having said that, though, it wasn't perfect. We saw a number of instances on the counter-attack where perhaps Alana Kennedy was out of position, or Claire Polkinghorne couldn't keep up with a pacey attacker. Do you think this central defensive combination is a sustainable one going forward, given that, Polks, as much as we adore her, is not getting any younger, and, Kennedy doesn't necessarily have the greatest recovery pace? Do you think that's something that maybe can be exploited at the World Cup in 2023? You're looking longer term. Is there a new defensive partner that we potentially have to mint there?
Yeah, I think we absolutely do. I think it's, and again, this is kind of one of those things that's been a long-term kind of question mark over the Matildas, where before it was Brock and Polkinghorne were kind of they're not getting any younger, so who's coming to the fore in that sense? I think, Polks obviously still has a really big role to play as that veteran, as that experienced kind of leader. I think Carly Rossbucken is the question in this regard. We haven't seen her for a while because the poor bugger's been absolutely just rife with injuries, but has made her return to her club in Norway. So is on managed minutes as she returns from injury. But I do think that she is that answer to that question in terms of being the right age, of being quick, of being a good defender, and can really create a partnership with Alana Kennedy that, lasts hopefully 5-10 years, depending obviously on how Kennedy goes about things. But I think, the Polkinghorne Kennedy one is good, but you're right in the sense that it's not a super long-term kind of solution to the problem. So in that regard, I think Rossbucken's an answer, but then we've got a few other players that could potentially be answers that are, again, in that right kind of age bracket and stuff, the likes of Emma Checker, who's in this squad as well. So I would be keen to kind of see them played around with almost in this game, because now that we've got the win, there is almost a little less expectation on getting a win. So there's that chance to kind of utilise the players and have a little tinker around and see who else can kind of show their goods, and see if it's something that we can utilise going forward.
And you did mention, obviously, tonight is a big game in terms of just seeing what we do have. Is that something that you sort of want to see tonight? Not really the result being as important. We already got the win tonight being another chance to sort of have a look at what else we've got in our reserve?
I think and this has basically been the big question of Tony's tenure of how do we balance preparing for something really big that's coming up versus, the fact that this is a results-based industry and you need wins. That's what keeps you in a job and that's what keeps everyone happy. So I think another win would quite help, to be honest, because there just haven't been that many, unfortunately, under Tony at the moment. But I do think that he will be able to kind of play around with the lineup a little bit more. I'm hoping that he'll be able to kind of blood some more players, hopefully give, the likes of Jamila Rankin a debut, get those other players who are kind of 10 caps and under into the mix, get them in front of a home crowd, get them, experience this, this is what it's going to be like times 10 in 2023. If you enjoyed this, then keep working and you're going to get to experience that in 2023. So again, I think it's that need to balance the two kind of not opposing forces, but those two things that have equal weight, and kind of get them to both be in a good position. So I think there will be experimentation, but a win is still kind of vitally important just because of how things have gone down in this last year.
I want to return to the Kyra Cooney-Cross chat because I don't think we quite sold that hard enough. I thought it was revelatory, her performance in that number 6 role, given that she's played as a winger and a number 10 at Melbourne Victory predominantly and just slotted straight into the national team. Only a couple of games in the Olympics playing in that sort of role, largely off the bench. And then playing as in a completely different position, but with her skill set where she can receive the ball kind of on the half turn, always moving, always presenting for it. And she's just so, I guess in the modern parlance, press resistant. She can almost dribble past anybody. And we had that with Fowler in that midfield combination as well. She's just so evasive and elusive when she gets the ball. It just gives this team a whole different dynamic to how they keep possession and, the way that they can actually build up and play out from the back. And then there's the flow-on effect with, not having that kind of Elise Kellen-Knight replacement in that role has meant so many players, usually one notable one in Emily Van Egmond, having to sacrifice and play in a position that doesn't suit them. But I thought it was really telling that Tony Gustafsson did name check Kyra in the post-match press conference because coaches don't usually like to mention individuals unprompted.
Yeah, I do agree that we need to hype her up. And we kind of talked about this on the Far Post pod. I've got to get my obligatory plug in for the pod. We had a chat about it. And I think Sam said it, that Kyra is almost being reverse engineered into a 6 where she's already got the attacking, she's already got the passing ability and all of that stuff. She just kind of needs to learn the defensive things. And we've seen her accumulate that stuff in the time that she has spent in the Matildas, and we're starting to see her put in the tackles, do the tracking back, do all of that good number 6 stuff that we want, that we wish KK was still doing. Hopefully she sorts herself out and can be healthy soon, because it would be just nice for her as a person to not be waddling around on crutches and stuff. But I think what Kyra can potentially do is so exciting because, as we said, we know that she's got so many good elements to her game. And if we can just kind of drill that more defensive stuff into her, which she's only young, she's absolutely a sponge and can kind of soak all of that information up. I think she can be so important. And I think you're right that Tony was right to name check her, because it is one of those things, defensive players don't really get the credit, and they love to mention that they don't get the credit. So for her to kind of do all that dirty grunt work in the midfield that often goes unnoticed and unchecked, but is so vital to the whole team the team as a whole running, I think it was important to kind of mention that and validate that, and just, you're doing the right thing, you're on the right track, and it's working well as well. I think that's the main thing. It's not kind of like other experiments where we've used players in other positions where it's like we kind of keep flogging that horse. This one, there's something there and it seems to be showing. So I'm really keen to kind of see how she progresses in the Matildas setup, but then also what kind of ramifications that has for her A-League women's season and how Victory and Jeff Hopkins use her. Like, is it going to be a thing where she's just playing two different positions depending on what shirt she's wearing? Or it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how that progresses as this year kind of moves on.
I think one of the cringier efforts from the Fox Sports era of the A-League was Heskey Cam, when you press the red button to watch Emil Heskey. But I think we need to resurrect that for Kyra Cooney Cross, because I want Kyra Cam. I want the red button option, because at points during that Matildas Brazil game, I was just completely ignoring the ball and just watching the way she was moving into position to receive it or dragging opponent out of the way so that the centre back could advance with the ball. She just has this intuitive understanding tactically that I think is almost impossible to expect anyone of that age to have, having barely ever played that position before. It just blew my mind. But I should probably stop, fanboying over Kyra at some point. Nick, you got any more questions?
Oh, I was just going to ask one more, Marissa, before we go. A-League Women's obviously starting in a month and a bit. What's exciting you at the moment? Obviously, I saw your tweet today. It's coming around the corner. It's almost just flew out of nowhere, just seeing the photos now and everything. What's something that you're really looking forward to in the next month to see, and obviously once the season starts?
Oh, I'm so excited for the season. I think it's, again, another one of those Australian football things. The off season is far too long. I'm so bored. I want something to watch, something that I can go to, you know what I mean? But there's so many exciting things coming up. I'm so keen to see the Knicks and what they do and what kind of young Kiwi talent is out there, but also what Australian players they're going to have to use, because that's part of the whole bit of them coming into it. They need to have these Australian players. I also have noticed there's a lot of young players. Like, if we thought last season there was a move towards younger players after the Matildas exodus, I feel like it's just kind of doubled down. So there's so many players that have either been train-ons or only gotten maybe like 10 minutes in an A-League women's season previously, who are now probably, they've got to step up. They're it. So I'm really excited to see all these young players, heaps of, Victorian talent kind of spread across the competition. So with my Victorian Nuffy hat on, I'm really excited to see all of those girls. But it's going to be such a great season. I'm really, really looking forward to it, and just seeing, can Perth improve on, the kind of bad hand they were dealt last season? Can Victory back it up? Because they've kept so many of their good players and added little bits and pieces. Really interested to see how Sydney progress, because it was almost by rights. They should have won last season. They were so fantastic. So there's so many little kind of storylines everywhere that I'm really looking forward to, and I'm just counting down the days till December 3rd.
Out of those players that you're excited about for this coming W League season, who do you think, with a few good performances, could force themselves into Tony G's plans? Because it's a question without notice, but as Briley Henry's shown, it only takes 6 starts and you could be in the mix. You just need
absolutely.
6 good games and you could be wearing a Matildas jersey, which I think, she was a bit of a surprise selection and a bolter, and I'm sure, players like Melina Ayres are wondering what they need to do to get a gig, but it's also a massive incentive for players who haven't even made their W League or A-League women's debut yet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned Melina, because when I saw the Briley Henry news, my brain immediately went to Melina Ayres and how well she had played last season. And I was like, God, she must be absolutely like kicking herself. She was great for South Melbourne as well. So I would love to kind of see her take that next step. I feel like similar to Remy Simpson as well, has kind of had always a decent A-League women's season and then kind of has finally gotten that next step. So I hope that comes for Melina Ayres. I don't know if they're maybe necessarily ready to go senior Matildas, but a lot of the young Matildas that have now signed contracts, so your likes of Alana Janchevsky, your Sophia Sakalis's, I'm really excited to see what they do and if they can kind of show themselves and show that they're ready to do the senior Matilda thing after obviously impressing at the junior level. So there's heaps of players, and of course I can't think of any of them now because I'm on air and my brain's gone into panic mode, but there's heaps of players that will emerge, and I reckon there's even some that will come out of left field and we'll all be like, holy hell, where have you been all along? Straight into the setup. So it's going to be really awesome.
Very last surprise left field question to throw at you, Marissa, because I always love to do that to our guests. It's very nice of me. this gap at centre-back that we've talked about, the need for a long-term replacement, the need for potentially, if we could muster one up, a super athletic, super fast kind of Terminator of a defender to play next to someone like Alana Kennedy to cover for her, lack of pace on the turn. Could we put in a call to the Home Affairs Department and see if we can't sort out a passport for a certain American centre-half at Melbourne Victory?
I have previously joked that, I think naturalisation, surely that process is,
everybody else does it, don't they?
Surely we can do that, because I reckon she's such a good player.
Kayla Morrison for the uninitiated.
We're just like alluding to it the entire time. But I could rave about Kayla Morrison for days. I think she's just an absolutely outstanding player, and I would love to see her, if she so chooses, to become an Australian and maybe work her way in. She's kind of similar in age to Alana Kennedy, and I just think she's such a calming presence, and I would love to see if she, brings that to a senior national side, obviously with the big asterisks of the fact that she is not actually Australian. But if that so happens, I would love it. I'm fully on board it as an idea, and I think she's absolutely fantastic.
All right, Kayla Morrison from the Matildas. Let's start the campaign now. It's a bit like the Ben Brereton Diaz for Chile. We've got to get this trending on social media. Unfortunately, I don't think she has any secret, grandparents or anything that we could speed the process along. But Marissa, always a pleasure to chat to you. If people want to check out your work, the Far Post podcast and the Raw, are those the places?
Those are the places to check it. I'll be on the Raw Live blog tonight, so you can come hang out if you so wish. But yeah, we'll have a pod episode as well, dissecting the game, and just plenty more talking Tillies.
Fantastic. Thanks, Marissa.
Thanks, guys.
We'll take a short break. On the other side, bit of Euro chat with you, Nick, and we might even talk about this massive equity investment in the A-League and try and pass some of the lingo there. So we'll take a break here on Twilight Football. Back in a short while.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Buying your electricity from the big energy companies is now the most expensive way to power your home. In fact, the average electricity bill in Australia has more than doubled in the last 15 years, but not for the ones who went solar. Unlike your electricity bill, the price of solar has actually come down, and there's also government rebates available. So what are you waiting for? Join the 2 million households already saving hundreds of dollars every year. See how much your roof could be making you at solarpowerco.com.au. Go solar and get $500 cash back with the Solar Power Co, Australia's most trusted solar brand. solarpowerco.com.au.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
We're back here on Twilight Football. Josh Parrish and Nick Devine are taking you through to 6 p.m. And we're just, during the break, trying to translate into something approaching plain English this Don Bussey article in the Sydney Morning Herald. about the A-League potentially selling 30% of the competition to a US private equity firm for the whopping fee of $130 million, which would be a massive cash injection into the coffers of the A-Leagues. That figure values the whole competition at more than $430 million. It's a novel concept, Nick, but for our cash-strapped code, this might be a welcome way to announce the independence of the A-Leagues.
I feel like if we were in the studio, Josh, if when you said $130 million, you get that Austin Powers, like that little, you know. Yeah, look, I, as you said, was just trying to go over Dom's article just a little bit earlier, just to kind of wrap my head around it, because a lot of accounting figures, and you know, I stopped doing maths when I was in year 12, and really all these sort of
yeah, we are nowhere near qualified to talk about this.
Look, when you have a look at it, you have a look at what it means. It's the biggest, I think it's the biggest sort of investment in the A-League ever. I believe what this article is basically saying from an outside consortium. I think based off what we're seeing here, it will go towards, obviously, some towards the clubs, which is big. Will help some of the, especially the cash-strapped clubs. You think about teams like the Mariners and Newcastle and a lot, even Perth Glory. We've heard how Tony Sage has been forced to sell his house and everything else. It would certainly help them. But also as well for what the competition's looking to do in the independent A-League, and, you know, in terms of promotion and relegation, hopefully that means something for that. That's definitely something really exciting. You know, Dom spoke about future investments, enabling clubs to buy more marquee players, and obviously more exciting probably for us, Josh, but the APL Hub, the new digital media platform, which we hope gets launched soon. But it is good that there is some investment in the league, Josh. I think it was, just over 12 months ago when we were talking about how Fox Sports were only putting in a fraction of what they were paying to keep the competition alive for the restart. It's a massive change. It is exciting. Like, there's money now coming into the game, and hopefully it means that there's a bit more of a future.
Yeah, I hope this isn't sort of selling the long-term future of the competition down the river for a short-term gain. I mean, you know, if you blow it all in marquee signings, I don't think the competition is going to last too long, you know, with that kind of short-term thinking. I mean, setting up the digital hub is a core part of this. And, you know, the A-League owner said they would invest. They're seeking outside investment. I think there is a hole in the sort of Australian football consumer marketplace for a little bit like what the World Game left over, but maybe something a little bit more forward-facing, a little bit, you know, embracing the newer technologies available now to actually build a site where you have potentially rights to show highlights from a number of different leagues, not just the A-League, stories from all sorts of Australians playing overseas, you know, just sort of a one-stop shop where people could go to get their football fix and potentially draw in fans who don't even follow the A-League, and then via the algorithm, you know, drip feed in a bit of A-League news with your, you know, Mo Salah storylines or what have you. And I think that would be a really good way to have an all-encompassing platform to actually convert people. Because I think we've been missing that. I don't feel like, as part of my sort of routine getting my football news in the morning, I have a defined place to go to. I'm browsing The Athletic and Sydney Morning Herald and so on and so forth. Whereas the World Game website, for me, used to be part of my kind of daily routine, and I do miss that.
Yeah, and I think that what you've hit on the nail on the head there, Josh, is talking about conversion. We have a lot of European football fans here, a lot of the big Premier League appetite, and Daniel Sturridge's signing summed that up. The second Daniel Sturridge signed, you had all sorts of just football fans, casual football fans, Premier League fans, Euro snobs, a lot, just all like, oh my God, Daniel Sturridge is coming here. That is something that they have to understand. There is an appetite from those casual fans, and there will be interest in seeing that. And you speak about a one-stop shop, Josh. I think a lot of people as well consume their news very differently now. A lot of people do it via, you know, short 3-minute highlight packages, not even like little 40-second highlight packages. They want to see the scores quickly. Like they go on FotMob, for instance, and you scroll through and you have a look, lineup, stats, you get all that. Then there's obviously the few that want their long-form Guardian athletic kind of pieces, which for me, and I think for you as well, Josh, we both like. Like we like the longer form stuff. So you're going to have both. And I think that's something they need to try and embrace. You have, even for the A-League, you have your short match reports, which are only written by, very sort of AAP-wise kind of stuff. And then you have your analysis from someone who's able to sort of speak about the broader storyline of the game and everything else, plus the highlights and everything. And you can go to that app, you can go to that website, and you can get stuff from overseas, you get stuff from Australia, and it's all together. And hopefully this money goes towards that. I think that's a massive part of it. And I think the sooner we get it off the ground, the better, because, I think we've heard about it for a while now that it's happening, but you hope that with 3 weeks until the season starts, that hopefully we can get at least a little bit of a soft launch around that time, because you don't want to be starting 6 weeks or 7 weeks into the season and you lose that bit of momentum. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. You speak about FOTMob and things like that. Now you've got, articles embedded on really widely used apps like that. Potentially the APL Digital Hub could look to form partnerships with really widely used applications like FOTMob and get their content embedded on the A-League News tab. I think there are various avenues for success and growth here and cross-promotion that could be achieved. And this cash injection, I don't know anything about Silver Lake. Hopefully it's, nothing like the Perth Glory cryptocurrency deal, and they do really have the money and they are legit. But I suspect, with CBS Viacom involved, that's probably greased the wheels for an American private equity firm to get involved. I think that this deal with a media conglomerate that isn't just in our little, cottage industry backyard in Australia has probably wider-reaching impacts for the reputation of the competition abroad. So I wouldn't underestimate CBS Viacom's influence or potential influence in making this thing happen. But Nick, before we go, we should cast our eyes over to Europe. Manchester United 0, Liverpool 5.
Oh my goodness! If you think that I think it was written in the Guardian about I was reading about this was easily the worst Manchester United loss I think ever. Like, you can't lose. Like 6-1 against City was bad, but that was different times.
What about Spurs just last year?
No. This is rock bottom. This is rock bottom, I think, Josh. I think, like, when you really think about it, the context of how much money they've spent and everything else, selling their soul to bring in all these players, and still seeing how, Vibes FC, you can't win games based off good vibes anymore. I was listening as well to plug the Guardian again, the Football Weekly this week, and I was saying, Ole was like fantastic for the pandemic era because, it was all about bringing the good vibes. During lockdown, need someone to keep the morale high and everything and all that sort of stuff in the locker room. But right now, it's not really working. The vibes are like a sugar hit. It's not a long-term thing. And Josh, you're a United fan, and one thing that I saw was just complete disarray, especially defensively, like players all over the place. There was no sort of positional awareness. The defense was picked apart like it was under 10, Sunday league kind of stuff. It was quite embarrassing, and I'm not even a United supporter.
It was complete chaos. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has become too wrapped up in the comeback against Atalanta, and it's been interesting to see him start to believe his own, bull, essentially, that he's trying to spin in press conferences, because he's always talking about the old days. He's always trying to get the fans on side, talking about Sir Alex and all this stuff and the Manchester United way. And I think it's gone to his head a little bit. He's tried to play 4-2-4 against Liverpool in 2021. It's an insane strategy to play 4 forwards who have little to no defensive impetus or responsibility. It's not just Ronaldo not running. They had 4 Ronaldos up front against Liverpool. And that had this flow-on effect of the Liverpool fullbacks being totally unopposed. And then for this first goal, I think especially, they conceded the same goal sort of 4 times, and the 5th was a bit different. But the first goal especially just summed it up for me, because it was Andy Robertson completely on his own, unmarked. But instead of just jockeying, holding position and waiting for players to get back and support defensively, Aaron Wan-Bissaka goes for a kamikaze charge towards him, completely abandoning his man. Lindelof goes out to the right-hand touch line. Harry Maguire is left stranded. McFred, both midfielders, totally astray in no man's land, and then Luke Shaw playing a different offside line to everybody else. It was just, it was hilarious. It was under 10s.
You could genuinely play the Benny Hill music over the top of it, just watching how easily it was picked apart. And look, I know that there's a lot of talk about bringing in Antonio Conte and how he's able to bring in results, but I don't think Antonio Conte could turn this team around without a transfer window. That is what this team is ridiculously unbalanced. There is no fix in midfield right now that they can put in that is going to actually work. But Fred is like, it is just football terrorism putting them to and sticking with it. Nemanja Matic is not Nemanja Matic of 5 years ago under Antonio Conte. Paul Pogba, we don't know what Paul Pogba's headspace is. Does he even really, like, he says he wants to be there and he doesn't, and he gets sent off for bad challenges like he did on the weekend. We know what he's like defensively. They've sort of shoehorned him onto a wing now. Donny van de Beek can't even get a minute on the pitch right now.
I mean, let me stop you right there, Nick, because I don't think it's the players. I mean, there have been some poor individual performances, but I think it's just a lack of a detailed approach from the manager. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. They're just playing on instinct, and there's 11 individuals.
I get that about there's lack of a game plan. There really isn't. There's lack of cohesion.
There's just no
as well.
Structure.
But
I think that's down to the manager.
It is definitely. But I still think that any coach that takes over is going to be finding themselves with a problem, especially in terms of the plays he puts on the field, especially in the middle. I think at either end, you've got things to work with. You've got an okay defense and you've got an okay attack. But the thing is, in midfield, it's just this black hole. You look at that combination, it's not going to work. They need to sort that out as well. Because Antonio Conte, the way he plays it, everything's through the middle. It's all about compressing things. Fred's erratic. McTominay is probably he's kind of the Antonio Conte mold of just being a destroyer. He'll just sit and let the others do the rest. But other than that, I still just have my doubts, Josh. Like, I think if Conte was to take over at the end of the season and, be able to buy 6 or 7 players, or probably doesn't need 6 or 7, maybe 4 or 5 players, and in his mold, he might be able to do something.
There's only one player that they need. It's just a defensive midfielder. It was so obvious, and they spent the money on Ronaldo instead.
Yeah,
and Ronaldo puts them in a really difficult position because he has to start. The whole team becomes about him. He doesn't do any defensive work. It's martyrball. I think there's a simple fix to this situation in the short term, and that is going 5 at the back or 3 at the back, whatever you want to call it. Because if you don't have a proper defensive midfielder to anchor that team, playing with 3 central defenders gives you a little bit more stability in terms of defending against counterattacks. So I think Antonio Conte's system, could fit pretty well in the immediate term. Bringing Donny van de Beek into the starting 11, I don't know necessarily who the other midfielder would be. Maybe McTominay, maybe Pogba. Did work with him at Juventus, of course. I also think Aaron Wan-Bissaka either needs to be dropped or converted into maybe a right-sided centre-back, a la, Kyle Walker in an England team, because he just can't provide the kind of attacking support that you need, and he's lacking direction like all the rest of the players. I think Diogo Dalot would immediately come into the mix as a right wing back, just a serviceable, fine player who doesn't have the just glaring strengths and weaknesses that Wan-Bissaka does. Honestly, I think, appointing a world-class manager, however short-term that appointment might be, would immediately improve United, especially one like Conte who's going to crack the whip.
He will, and I think in terms of Conte as a person, Josh, I think he's the person they need because he
doesn't suffer fools.
No, he will put them through a boot camp within days. He does not care. I was watching this interview he had with Henri. I don't know how long ago it was, but I saw it come from my TikTok feed, and he was basically talking about how if you're not on my side and you don't work with me, I want to kill you. That's literally essentially what he said. That's just paraphrasing it. But he's a nutcase, and we know he's everywhere he's gone. He's done really well at the start, and then he leaves this. He's almost like Jose in that fact that he leaves on really bad terms and rubs a lot of people the wrong way. But the one thing that I'd be curious about is because if he came in, we've seen what Conte's gone from more of a 3-4-3 to now the 3-5-2. He likes to really, compact things up front, play 2 up top. And at Inter, he really looked at 2 hard-working forwards. You had Romelu Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez who worked together it was like this perfect, like it was like watching an orchestra, seeing how they work together. There's a lot of players in United's squad profile that would probably not fit that style. How does Jadon Sancho, does he become sort of a inside forward? Can he play as a wing back? I'm not too sure if that would work. There's a few other players. I don't know if Bruno Fernandes has the defensive capability to play in that sort of system. He'd have to have some sort of Christian Eriksen kind of remontada as he did in the last 6 months of last season. So I'd be intrigued to see how it would work after he also got a transfer window, because I think he'd go out and he'd probably go and look at buying someone like Nicola Barella, who fits his style to a T. I know Marcelo Brozovic is out of contract. I reckon he would go and get...
Brozovic would do bits.
Would be a massive
immediately fix that team. Like it would transform it completely just with one player. Brozovic as a
absolutely.
6. Then maybe you move Van der Beek into the starting 11.
That's if he still wants to be there.
Yeah, well, but under a new coach, I think he would potentially have a new lease of life.
But you have to ask, Josh, how long do United, I guess, back him in? Because they've publicly said he's our guy and he's signed a 4-year deal. I know that contracts mean nothing these days, but it's still going to be a hefty payout. How long do you do you let him just go through this next month, this horrible run of fixtures, and then say if they lost against City and just got battered against them, you just go, all right, that's it? Or do you cut it short after Tottenham on the weekend or after Atalanta? What do you think?
I mean, if that's not a sackable performance against Liverpool, I'm not sure what is. Obviously it's a tough run of games. Maybe you bring in a caretaker coach or assistant coach to just coach those games so that you're not giving a new manager a baptism of fire. Maybe you wait until, closer to January. But what really irks me is the lineup of former United players who were teammates with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and have a massive conflict of interest. They can't seem to bring themselves to say he needs to go. He needs to be sacked. Especially Gary Neville, who, I don't know if you've seen the Sky Sports clip, but he ties himself in knots trying to justify a reason why Ole should stay on. It's extraordinary. It really is.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get through the entire clip because, he's saying he never says that a manager should be sacked. And that's fair enough. Maybe that's a consistent thing. He just doesn't want to call for people's jobs. But then he says that Conte wouldn't be a fit at United because he's a mercenary head coach. And I think that's crazy because this is harking back to a time that doesn't exist at United anymore. Trying to replicate the Alex Ferguson model will never work because there is only one Alex Ferguson. United need to, the sooner they realise that they are just any other super club and not, and the sooner they let go of that kind of exceptionalism, the sort of pompous United way stuff that, these class of 92 pundits keep peddling, the sooner they will move on and, discover that, yes, maybe you need to change your manager every 2 or 3 years. This happens. It's part of the game. And looking for the best, most experienced world-class manager is exactly what you should be doing at Manchester United, not trying to groom the next Sir Alex Ferguson who doesn't exist.
And put it like this, they missed the boat on Thomas Tuchel. Thomas Tuchel would have been a great fit at Manchester United had he come in. You remember just how quickly he changed things at Chelsea from their disorganised, shambles they were in under Frank Lampard to a week later they were defensively just rigid and like you couldn't get through them.
I mean, how many world-class managers have United let slip them by? Pochettino,
Klopp. Yes.
They could have signed Jurgen Klopp. Before he went to Liverpool, of course.
Well, they had numerous chances at Poch. He was always technically available even when he was at Spurs.
Exactly.
You'd think that they probably could have gone for Carlo Ancelotti at least twice. Maybe... who else is there that's really gone? I mean, Conte was available during this period as well, like in between jobs at Chelsea and Inter. There's been heaps. Like you can rattle them off. There's been so many that have come through. And I do get a sense that, if this was any other boss, if this was any other coach, if it was Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, you think back, David Moyes, you think of the last 3 bosses that came before him and the pressure that they were under. Mourinho got them trophies. He was copping it left, right and centre. I know that it was very different. I know with Louis van Gaal, they played anti-football, but he did better than what they were doing under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But, I think that look, for the man, you never want to wish someone to lose their job. It's a terrible thing to say, but in this football world, in the football punditry, if someone's not up to it, sometimes you just got to say, right, you know what, we understand you're a club legend, but that's what comes, Josh, when you hire a club legend at your team. Think about Juventus with Pirlo. Think about Milan with all those coaches they brought in, Seedorf, Inzaghi, Gattuso.
You know it's going to end in tears at some point. That's part of the appointment.
And sometimes the popular player doesn't necessarily make the popular coach. It just doesn't work always. A lot of the best coaches, Josh, were not the best players, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, trying to resurrect an era that doesn't exist anymore is just not going to happen. Solskjaer has tried to do it in the dugout. United are trying to do it at board level. Their ex-players are trying to do it in the punditry chairs on Sky Sports and the like, and it's just it's just nostalgia. It's just the thing about the old days is they the old days, as the famous line from The Wire goes. Yeah, so,
and just quickly, Josh, just before we wrap it up, I mean, this weekend against Tottenham, it's massive for both teams. Like, this is, you look at I'm about to say something else I can't say at this time, but their sort of situation at the moment with Espirito Santo, and you look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Whoever loses this game, there's going to be that extra layer, that you don't want to lose against the equally struggling giant. It's that weird storyline. You've got two big teams, both struggling, both managers under pressure. And if that manager gets the nose on you, it's not going to look good for the other. And I just get this feeling that, that magic of Solskjaer pulling out results against bigger clubs, it's gone. Like, I think that's one thing we just got to put the line through. And it'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend.
Unless he goes back to the shape that he would play in those games. But
will that happen?
Well, that involves dropping Ronaldo. And he's clearly demonstrated that he doesn't have the gravitas or to do that and own that decision.
And also, you have to think, there are a lot of United fans out there, Josh, that don't see the bigger issue about Ronaldo, that Ronaldo is not the problem. They still think that everything revolves around Ronaldo just scores goals. Just got to give him service, blah, blah, blah. He's transformative, blah, blah, blah. But they don't see the other issues.
Yeah.
He
Solskjaer
doesn't want to piss anyone off.
The way he won big games is by playing this sort of, a lot of the time it was like a diamond with two kind of wide strikers playing up front, sort of somewhere between wingers and forwards, and then Bruno Fernandes spraying the through balls from behind, and would be Rashford and Greenwood usually, and that was just killing teams with pace on the break and sitting quite deep and retaining defensive structure. Now they're trying to play this swashbuckling brand of football and try and prove everybody wrong and say, we're still Manchester United, it'll be okay. And, that's been proven to be a completely insane kamikaze approach. So unless Solskjaer changes it up and goes back to the very conservative, rapid counter-attacking football that got him those big results, those big scalps in big games against big opposition, I can see them going down again this weekend against Tottenham, and in several of these big games they have coming up. It's only going to get worse. So, Nick, I think we've done that one to death. We should leave it there. It's been a pleasure. If people want to hear our chat with Marissa Lordanic, you can catch up, just rewind the live stream once we go off air, or catch up on the podcast platforms. But Nick, I'll speak to you again soon.
See you then, Josh.